the end goal is an offer, but that's actually not the end result. That's not all you get out of this. There's learning resilience and confidence and how to handle feedback and meeting new people.
And why you have to be laser focused and ask yourself the tough questions. What do I want from this? What do I want to do at the end of all of this? Essentially, if you can't answer those questions now, it's going to narrow the opportunities that are available for you when the time comes. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Steps, produced by Apollo Performance and Turning Point Dance Creations. We've spent the past 3 episodes diving deep into college dance recruiting with the amazing Treshawn Brown, and today we're wrapping it all up.
That's right. This episode is all about reflection. We're taking a step back to unpack what we learned, what stood out, how families can use it, how do they put it all together, how do they navigate the transition? Is it from studio to sidelines or maybe not?
There's way more than I thought. Honestly, this conversation opened our eyes to so many aspects of recruiting that aren't always talked about. The emotional side, the parent-child dynamics and how that evolves, and what really happens behind the scenes with the coaches, as far as expectations and results and all of those things. So there's a lot to consider here for sure.
Yeah, I love the way in segment one, Trishawn really started with this from the top. Like, what does college dance recruiting even mean? And one of the things we really found out was that a lot of families are misunderstanding it because it's not quite like your quote unquote athletic recruiting, but there are some similarities.
Yeah, because I oftentimes you hear parents say, "I was never a dancer. I didn't dance, so I don't know." But they played, some sort of contact sport, and they think of recruiting in that mindset, and it is really different. And I even go back to the conversations we had last season with the head coach of A&M, which is Aggie Dance, which is a club. It's not a big collegiate dance program like Trishawn is talking about. And then we also had the conversation with the director of Steps on Broadway and their collegiate prep course that they have, and that was different still. And so there's very specific paths, which I loved that we learned about as well. But there's no roadmap for any of it, actually. So it's not just about applying to a dance program, it's about building the relationships over time, right? Learning the landscape of whatever college you're interested in, knowing how teams recruit differently from schools that have dance as majors. If you're in a college dance program versus a collegiate dance athletic club or a club, that's very, very different. Those are different things, right? So we have to make sure that we're understanding fully what we're pursuing.
And Trishawn blew me away when she talked about how early you have to start this process, as early as 8th or ninth grade sometimes. So,
That was shocking a little bit because that's like now, like for me, my kid's in 7th grade, like next year. That's really hard for me to fathom. And if that's hard for me to fathom as somebody that's been in the professional dance world and on the coaching side, I'm sure that it is something that's not even on any other people's radars. Segment 2, we really shifted from what is recruiting to the parent's perspective, and really it shifted to the role of the parent in this process, which also I don't think is talked about enough because at least in my world right now with a 7th grader, there's this big shift in all their extracurriculars of we want to hear from your kid. We don't want to hear from the parent. And so you really start to get this idea that they really just don't want to talk to the parents unless it's about like the finance side or here's the rules, but the communication is really lasered in on that coach athlete sort of relationship, and the parent is way more involved in this process than you would think. So in what Trishawn was saying was really full of a lot of relatable moments.
absolutely, and especially when she talked about, hovering versus, being supportive, that it's a constant dance. Ha ha, see what I did there? It's a constant dance between being supportive, but still letting them be on their own journey, and that's probably the biggest learning for a lot of the parents, because up to this point, you've been like, "Do this, do that, go here, go there," and really letting them grow into their independence. But not letting them. She gave the analogy of driving the bus. Like you wouldn't let your 14-year-old drive a bus and you sit in the back seat all the way in the back row.
No, you would never no one with in their right mind would do that, and I kept thinking the same thing. I was talking to a parent the other day, and this dad, and he said, "It's really about," because he has kids that are much older than ours, and he had said, "It's really about being changing from being a manager to more guiding. You're not managing, you're guiding," and that really resonated with me while we were talking about, all of this with Treshawn, because that's really what you're doing through this process is you are guiding. You're not micromanaging, but you are guiding. Very much so.
I always think of the analogy of the driver's ed instructor that's in the passenger seat but has a brake, but tries not to use it too often. They have a brake, but I'm not gonna slam on it until we're in dire straits.
Yeah. But it's there if you need it. Yeah. But the emotional part of all of this really hit me, the pressure, the comparisons, the waiting. We had talked to Trishawn after and she had said, we've done all of these weekends and now we just wait 4 or 5 months to hear how it all turns out. And that's got to be agonizing. So her advice about staying organized and keeping communication open and focusing on your dancer's path instead of everyone else's was really grounding. And I just think so important to keep in mind.
And a lot of the things she said apply way beyond recruiting. Like it's good parenting wisdom, especially as your child is transitioning into this pseudo independent space.
Adulthood at sort of like eighth or ninth grade, it's so weird.
It's just good parenting wisdom to understand that you're moving into a new phase of parenting. So I think that that advice can apply to people who maybe aren't even recruiting, and especially people who are maybe through this recruiting journey in a different sport or in a different arena. In segment 3, we talked a lot about the coaches, getting the scoop from the coaches in because Trishawn is actually skilled and experienced in both and what coaches are really, really looking for. She gave us so many insights there.
I love that she said the word versatility. This is something as dance coaches and directors we hammer all the time, but to hear it being said in the context of the next step in the process, that's helpful. That's very affirming. But that versatility is one of the most important skills you can have. And it's not just about how talented you are, it's how you receive multiple styles because so many of these schools are doing different styles. They have their game day performances, but then they're competing on a bigger stage and they're doing multiple styles. And you have to be able to do all of that with a personality, and also how are you fitting in with the team culture? How does your personality fit in with the existing group and the culture of that team?
Absolutely. And she talked about social media, which I absolutely love. We've had a bunch of shows around social media and protection of social media, but she talked about social media as the tool, one of the biggest tools that you use to introduce yourself to the coaching world, to the dance team world. It's where they can always go back and refer to you to see what it is that you're doing, not only dance wise, but also personally, like being able to put some of your personality out there so they can see actually who you really are authentically as a person is very important. And one of the things that I don't think we touched on, but is also the other side of that is making sure that your social media is actually the face that you want to show to these coaches and these teams, and making sure that you're presenting yourself in a way that would make them proud, and not scared to have you as a reputational risk on their team.
Yeah, she really gave some the great tip that stood out for me from a parent's angle is like, when you're keeping all of this information organized in your spreadsheets and all of the things, making sure that your kid has a separate email set up to handle all this influx of communication and it doesn't get buried in your inbox. I think that's really, it can't be stated enough how important that is. And also, like in this day where we're talking about, okay, no social media, like that's something that we've talked a lot about in our house that our kids are not going to have that for a very long time and or we're going to try to uphold that anyway, but having a parent manage social media account with their highlights and their, like you said, their sort of resume is that social media page is going to be looked for. So as parents, maybe social media isn't something you want to allow your student to have, but maybe you need to create that page to serve their future goals. So that's something to consider as well. Overall, what stood out to me through all of this is that the recruiting process is really about growth, no matter what the outcome. Whether you get into your top school of choice or your, fifth or sixth choice, or you don't get into anywhere, it's about the growth that you see in that individual.
The end goal is an offer, but that's actually not the end result. That's not all you get out of this. There's learning resilience and confidence and how to handle feedback and meeting new people and change. And all of those things will serve you as a person, as a human being, not just as a dancer. And they'll serve you long, long, long after audition season. So yeah, even though the end goal and the end hope is that you get an offer, there's so many more benefits and rewards that come from this process after it's over.
And as Treshawn said, every dancer's journey looks very different, and that's kind of what makes it special, and going through this special, and why you have to be laser focused and ask yourself the tough questions. What do I want from this? What do I want to do at the end of all of this? What do I want to do with my life? And essentially, if you can't answer those questions now, it's gonna narrow the opportunities that are available for you when the time comes. So I hope that you all out there got a lot out of this episode. I know we did. It was a lot of fun to kind of examine the recruiting process from the collegiate dance team side of things, in a different way than we have before. So definitely go back and check out the full series that we did with Treshawn Brown. We encourage you, as always, to visit our website with lots of helpful information, including our free Steps Initiative course. It was the catalyst for the show. It is a course that you can go on your own, and it's going to highlight everything from sex abuse and prevention, nutrition and psychology, dance medicine and science, racism, gender inequities, and how it impacts the dance community. But when you know better, you do better. So go take that course, share it within your community, and learn more. We're going to put that link in the chat below. So other than that, I think with Treshawn, if anybody does want to get a hold of Treshawn, it's TLC Dance Experience on Instagram. She is a recruiting trainer and a dance educator. So she is really accessible and full of a ton of tips and knowledge on this process. So if you are a parent going through this or going to be going through it, this is another great free resource for you to find. And I'm sure you can book consulting with her too if you decide to move forward with that. So encourage you to follow Treshawn at TLC Dance Experience.
I'm so proud of this series. I think it's going to help so many parents and so many dancers feel a little less overwhelmed by this recruiting process.
So if you've missed any part of our series with Treshawn Brown, again, go back and listen to episodes 1 through 3. They're packed with practical advice and encouragement on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Apollo Performance and TP Dance Creations. And all of our shows are there. So go back and check out seasons 1 through 5 while you're at it.
And as always, make sure you're following the show so you don't miss what's coming next month. We've got another amazing lineup of conversations planned. See you next time, and we hope you continue